Good evening, everyone. This is the May 9th meeting of the Grosse Ile Township Public Services Commission. I'd like to call the meeting to order, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We'll call the roll. Kostick is here. Kennedy?
Here.
Schmidtke?
Present, sir.
Danko? Biddle?
Here.
Pedestris?
Present.
And David Nadeau?
Here.
So we have a quorum, and we have staff in the audience, our township manager, our director of wastewater treatment plant, and our field supervisor, John Keim. John? As our city engineer is also here, and he's going to be introduced later. Sohail Sabak, thank you for being here. So tonight's meeting, first thing we want to do is look at the agenda and approve the agenda. So you have it in front of you. I'll make a motion to approve tonight's agenda. Is there support?
Second.
Is there any questions, changes in the agenda? One thing I just want to point out is we have in the audience Mr. Jeff Demick of Highway Maintenance. Jeff is our prior contractor that put the chip seal down on the island 5 or 6, 7 years ago. And he came to the meeting tonight to talk to the commission. So when we get to, if we get hurriedly through these items, or do you want to deal with Jeff now or go through our other items?
I guess we can get Jeff out of here right now if you'd like.
Okay. So, and I'm going to let Derek explain this a little more. If you recall the last meeting when we talked about the paving bids that we received, there was a question raised by a few of you about whether we could chip seal this early in the season. And Derek spoke with Jeff, and Jeff agreed that he'd come in and talk to the commission about his desire, which was originally to get started by Thursday or Friday of this week. And so Jeff, if you come up and Derek can show you up to the podium, you can speak to us about that issue. And Derek, do you want to say anything that I haven't?
So you covered it well. Just wanted to see if Jeff could attend, and he was more than willing to, just to kind of put your guys' mind at ease with regards to the application of the material during the cooler weather conditions versus like July or August.
Jeff, I want to thank you for coming here tonight. So appreciate
My
it.
pleasure. So, you know, just in retrospect, last time we were here, we were working in May. The state specs that we all worked for and that were bid this upon, there's temperature range is supposed to be 50 degrees and rising. And, you know, we've been doing this stuff for 50 years, and we've never really worried about May because it's going to get hotter. We worry about October because it's going to get colder. So, you know, right now we're in the 70s. We've got, 60-degree nights, and it's not going to, nothing's much going to change from now on. It's just going to get hotter and hotter. And so we've got, that's good weather to chip seal in. So I don't have any problem standing behind what's going to happen, and we're going to be able to give you a good job. Maybe, other than that, we're working under the specs that we've always worked for, and we've had I don't think I've ever had any problems in May work, just because things get hotter. We like it when things get hotter.
Jeff, can you explain, the only question I have is, we were always taught, we studied this years ago and before we bid the first chip seal, and our engineer was probably part of that. We went to the Monroe County Road Commission, some of us did, and I went to Lenawee County, and everybody talks about it's got to be 50 degrees or rising, right? And we know in May, sometimes you have a colder night. But the question I have is this: from the time you lay complete the chip seal and you roll it in, and traffic's starting to move on it again,
It's about 3 or 4 minutes.
Explain how many days it takes or hours it takes for it to be safe.
Well, the chip seal process, you have an asphalt distributor which sprays the asphalt, which is 160 to 180 degrees on the pavement. And then you have a chip spreader which puts the chips lays the chips down right on top of the asphalt, and then you got the rollers right behind that. And we try to keep our operation between chipper and distributor. You try to stay within 100, 150 feet, so we're just moving right along. And when the distributor, runs out of material, we stop, wait for the next one. We run 2 distributors, so the other one pulls up, and on we go. You really, by the time from it's been put on the ground until it's rolled is probably only about 2 or 3 minutes that it's going down the road, because then it's being rolled. And once you roll it just to seat the stone so that it's seated into the asphalt. And the process of actual curing happens right away with the emulsion that we're using. But, there's going to be some loose stone on top because we can't grab every one. But I'd say you can drive on it right away. And I'd say within an hour or 2, you could probably just push it with your foot and not even move it. So it's pretty much done
Pretty cured within 24 hours?
within an hour. No, it's not cured, okay. So, and the curing action is actually the water driving off from, the emulsion is water and asphalt, and the water drives off, and then the asphalt grabs onto the rock. So that curing probably goes for a week, if it depends on the humidity, a nice bright sunny day, low humidity, things go faster, clouds, but it just works.
Open it up to questions, Phil.
Yep.
Now, do you spray another coat on after all this then, correct?
Yeah, because you're getting a double.
Okay.
Yeah, so we'll put our first application down, and we put the first application down with the stone a little bit lighter to leave a little bit of gaps so you can see through. So then when we come back and put the second application down, we go a little heavier, and then the 2 applications go through and they lock together. So there's a little bit of difference in application rates between top and bottom, but, we'll go down, back. I don't tell you how many times people said, you only did it once, but we do it so fast that they can't catch us.
Question. In my reading about it, and I'm not a chip seal expert by any matter of means, they do mention definitely the 50-degree threshold, and I even read that it can be too hot at times, that they said, where there could be issues. But my question is, what about if it rains?
If we don't get caught that hour, that's,
Does the road
We-
have to
we've
be
got-
dry when you start?
oh, absolutely. We can't work in the rain.
Okay.
We can work up to, if rain's coming, we can stop an hour before it gets
Okay.
here.
So it's the road being wet before you start that's the problem.
Yes.
Okay.
And then we've actually been caught, we've been caught in rains before. So most of the time, not much happens. If it's a quick rain, no problem. If we just got started and something came in and then stuck around for the next 3 or 4 hours, we'll know right away because there'll be stone loss. So you'll have to fix it. So,
Thank you.
It's not something that we like to do because we don't like to redo it twice.
Right.
One time's a charm.
Okay, so,
Well, I do have one more question. Have you determined that all the patching on the roads has been done that would need to be done? I know when we did this first number of years ago, we had several areas we had to,
I know, but the
Patch
but the
first.
chip seal you put on it made it hold up. There's not much. If you go out there and look, if you go look up here at Grow, I did not see a crack. There's not even a crack in the middle. And
along
that's
the
one of the
edge, it
chip
looks
seals.
like it's some of the driveways and that is kind of broken off and that. Does that get filled first or should we do that? Or-
Well, the edge is. Some of the spots down by where the guardrail is and stuff like that, but nobody drives on it anyway, so we'll just seal it up. I don't know if you're worried about, you're not driving on that outside 6 inches.
Well, I'm specifically referring to the one driveway that comes in, the second driveway into the Township Hall area, where the east corner is just totally deteriorated.
Yeah.
You know where I mean, Derek?
Yeah, and there are some areas that we're gonna be doing some work under our road program.
Yeah, I think the hot mix repair would be a better on that, to kind of do a little mill.
I just know the
mill
last
joint
time
along there.
we did it, we actually did some repairs in advance.
And we had talked about that in our pre-con, and I think that
I haven't seen anything that
Yeah.
really.
Okay.
Jeff's
needed.
answer was basically the roads that we're doing, upon his review of them, they didn't appear that they needed patching.
The only
like we
one
did.
area that I keep seeing is that corner as it comes in, and I just, you know, if we've looked at the rest of them there, I mean, I know down South Point, it's in good shape, the areas that we're gonna do. So that's all I have.
Okay, other questions?
I got a question.
Yes, sir.
Have you ever done gravel roads?
Yep. 2 coats over gravel. I'm doing one in Bloomfield Hills.
Answer my question.
Yep, we're doing a subdivision.
How does that hold up? Pretty good?
If you got good base and you got good drainage, I've done some private roads, gravel roads. I'm doing one this year that I did it the first time in 2002. I've done it one time since then, and this is the third time since 2002. We're going on 20 years. I put a double chip on it, and we put another single on about 8 or 9 years ago, and now it's getting another single right before you guys. We're gonna do it next week, or this week. So yeah, it'll work, but base has gotta be good. Chip doesn't have strength, it has flexibility. So if your base is good,
Yeah, because I noticed them doing chip seal on, not gravel roads around here, but up north.
and we do a lot of work up north.
I see them
But
doing a lot on the sand.
Most, we're around what area?
Kalkaska.
Oh, I've worked for Kalkaska County. I've worked for all the counties up there. We go over the whole state, so. They don't normally, they've gotten away from putting them on gravel now. It's basically they pave them and then using the chip seal to maintain.
Thank you.
Ray, Lenny, questions?
Oh, thank you.
Eric?
One other one, a concern that had come up, I think at our last meeting was, obviously the air temperature, we've talked about that, but what about the surface temperature? Because earlier in the year, the surface temperature might not be as high, the ground temperature might not be as high as is that an issue?
It's not an issue because we get on it so fast and get it rolled in that it's holding the temperature from the emulsion and it grabs. I mean, you get into problems in hot days. The maximum pavement temperature is 130 degrees. But normally, 60, 70, you'll find that on a day like today, if you take a heat gun to that pavement, it holds the heat from the day through most of the night. The next morning, it doesn't chill off unless it's middle of the winter.
And we didn't have a real bad winter where there was a lot of frost in the ground where it was still coming out this time of the year. or anything like that.
I don't think
we had any, yeah.
I don't think there's any frost was in the ground.
John, do you have any questions?
No, sir, thank you.
So Al? Last time we did it, John, I recall, didn't you stockpile the pea stone at the airport?
We got it behind the DPW right now.
Oh, it is there.
There's a bunch. Yeah,
So
I
you're-
kind of snookered John and told him I was putting it in 400 and he got 800, so, But he found room for it, so I'm good.
All right,
We'll make it go away in a couple days.
That's right on where the projects are, for your convenience.
Yeah, that's a nice stockpile location.
And you were talking about maybe doing East River first, then South Point, then Grove, working your way back in. Is that what it was?
We'll work our way towards where we come out from the DPW. So Grow will be the last one that we'll do because we don't want to make our turns onto our fresh chip until we're done. That would just, the only turn we'll be making is when we're heading out of town. So, and then after we're done chipping, we'll probably be sweeping the next day, or we might let traffic beat out in a couple days. But then we got to sweep everything before we can fog seal it. But we'll be getting into that a couple days after the chip's all done.
And you guys are striping, aren't you?
Yeah. Well, let's get the fog seal done, then we can just call the striper guys. After the fog seal's done, they can just get in here.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Are there any other questions from anybody at this point? If not, I want to express our appreciation for you being here. Appreciate you coming in.
I appreciate the work.
And
And the more work that we're gonna do, but maybe a little later. I can't get to the additions until a little bit later in the summer. I've got a pretty
hopefully
full
we can
schedule.
get some of the additional work done.
Yeah, we'll get it done. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Anything else, Derek? Okay, thank you for coming, Jeff. All right, so we'll, did somebody have a comment? Oh, okay. With that, we will, we've approved the agenda. Now we're going to look at the minutes of our April 23rd meeting. You've all had a copy of your agenda packet. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Support.
Been moved, supported, the minutes of our April 2023 meeting be approved as distributed. Are there any amendments, comments? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I
Minutes are
abstain.
approved. Oh,
I
Les
wasn't here.
abstains. Next, we have approval of the vouchers for the month of April 2023. Are there any comments? Oh, I'll entertain a motion to approve the vouchers.
Motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, moved and supported that the vouchers be approved as distributed. Are there questions? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed? The vouchers are approved. Item 7 on our agenda, we have a review of our statements of revenues and expenditures. And of course, April, through April, and that's the first month of the fiscal year, the first out of 12. So I looked it over and there wasn't much to look at because we just started the fiscal year. So are there any questions? Otherwise, we'll receive and file the revenues and expenditure statements. Phil?
One question, and can I back up and ask a question about the previous one, even though I would have approved it?
Of course, sure.
Derek,
What page are you?
there were 2 vouchers in there that totaled about $70,000 for the brush removal. Is that the final bill for taking care of the ice storm damage?
I'll have to get back to you on it. There was probably close to about $100,000 in expense for that, but we were putting some to different accounts, so
Okay.
I think that'll be the max in refuse, because we had some fund balance in there that we were working off of. So, but I'll let you know for sure.
I was just curious. I mean, that's quite a bit of money we
It was.
spent to take care of that
Yep.
for the residents, and I
Yep.
thought that was good. And then on the expenditures, this special engineering fee, is that for the clarifier?
How much? are we talking-
$230,000?
All right. So Derek and I talked to Ann about that.
Go ahead.
It's just an incorrect posting.
Oh,
So she's-
seemed
Ann,
like a lot.
our finance director explained to me the 20,000's what's been budgeted.
Right.
She's been trying to set up a new schedule for how she's going to make the payments to the contractor when they start the work at the wastewater plant. That work was for the,
Sludge pumps, so it just got hit to the wrong account is all that is. So she's already backed that out, hit the proper account,
Okay,
yeah. So that's what that was all
no
about.
problem.
that jumped out at me too because.
Yeah, on page
we
number 17, you're at
Budgeted 20,000.
1,150% of the budget for that line item, so that was incorrect.
Okay,
An incorrect
no
posting.
problem.
But good catch, Phil.
Pretty big number.
Yes, absolutely.
Have to buy a
Okay,
ballot.
so if there aren't any other questions on item 7, a statement of revenues and expenditures, we will receive and file the statement of revenues and expenditures. Item 8 is approval of the treasurer's report.
I'll make a motion, we approve the treasurer's report.
Is there support?
Support.
Support by the treasurer, thank you. It's a 2-page report, and I just want to call your attention to page 25 of our packet. You can look at the number under the road fund, which includes the sale of the bonds. So that's showing right now $7,488,000. A large number that we're going to spend a good part of that, almost all of it, this summer. So we're going to talk about that a little later. It's been moved and supported. Are there any questions about the treasurer's report?
One quick comment on that drain and stormwater maintenance account. That 2023 collection happens in December, so that money hasn't been realized yet, but we will realize it with our December collection. So although the balance says at 430 is 531, it's actually less than that until January. So just to let you know.
But that shows you what money we
Coming in.
have to use
Yep.
this year. Okay, with that, if there are no questions, all in favor of approving the treasurer's report, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Treasurer's report's approved. Now, we have some guests here, and we're going to talk about we're going to get a presentation on the update of our asset management plan involving our wastewater treatment plant and our sanitary sewer system. Derek, I'll let you do the introductions.
In the audience, we have Maria Sadecki, Melissa Blazer, and Sohail Sebek. Between Fishbeck Engineering and Charles Rains Company, they worked over the past 3-4 years on putting together our asset management plan for both our vertical and horizontal assets in our sanitary sewer system. So if you recall from sitting on the commission, the monthly updates about where we're at with televising, where we're at with the asset management plan, this is kind of the culmination of all that work that's been happening. So we wanted to bring them in and have them discuss with you the final product, the deliverables, and show you our asset management plan that we're going to be working off of for the next 20 years to make sure that our sanitary system is in good operating condition for our residents. So with that, these individuals will be presenting to you this evening on that information.
Good evening, everyone. I'm going to give you just a brief background on the asset management plan that we did, then I'll introduce Maria and Melissa. In the spring of 2017, the township approved the asset management plan to do the plan, which was very confusing at the time, but that was, again, like an outline of the asset management plan. Right after that, Eagle reviewed it and approved it. After they approved it, the township authorized the preparation of the asset management plan itself. So because of the work effort that's involved, we partnered with Fishbeck to help with the work on the plan. The plan, consisting of 1,000 pages plus or minus, was completed in accordance with the ACO requirements by Eagle, and it was submitted to Eagle before the due date scheduled by May 1st, 2023. Now I'd like to introduce Maria Sadecki and Melissa Blazer. They can go through the plan itself. They're the ones that managed, guided, and finalized the asset management plan report before we submitted it. Maria, Melissa.
Good evening, everyone. Great. All right. We're going to be presenting on the asset management plan today. Please, if you have questions along the way, ask them. We don't have to wait till the end. We find this stuff exciting, but I know not everybody else does. So, all right. So, asset management plan. What we're going to go through today is kind of the components of the asset management plan, each by itself, and kind of where we ended up. Because you guys have a wastewater treatment plant, you were required through your NPDES permit to have an asset management plan. That was a requirement of the system. So, and Eagle requires that it has these 5 components. It's part of the requirement. So we have to do an asset inventory and condition assessment of your assets, asset criticality, discuss a level of service, develop your O&M strategies, and develop a capital improvement plan. So we're going to go through all of these and kind of walk you through. So asset inventory and condition assessment. Derek just mentioned earlier horizontal assets and vertical assets, so we just kind of want to go through this. The horizontal assets are your manholes and the pipes in the system. So that's what we call your horizontal assets. Your vertical assets are the equipment that are at the treatment plant and at the pump stations. The pumps, the valves. So we call them vertical assets because they're vertical. You know, they're not spread over space. So those are your horizontal and vertical assets. So the asset management plan included all of them. As part of the asset inventory and condition assessment part, we developed a GIS database of your system, and we're going to go through it in a minute. Came up with a unique naming convention for every asset, every manhole, every pipe, every valve, every pump, heater, everything had its own name, unique name to identify it. And then we went through your record drawings and did an inventory of those. Then we did an inventory of all the assets themselves, and then a condition assessment. So again, we'll go through those in a minute, but that's what's in the inventory. The GIS database, so we spent some time building your GIS database for you, and that's where Melissa comes in. She's going to walk you through some examples of your database.
Yes, thanks, Maria. Okay, so GIS stands for Geographical Information Systems. It's essentially a database of your assets and those and their criticality. So I'm gonna actually show a demo here of what we created. So there was GPSing done, televising, all that good stuff. The field crews purchased 2 iPads that they have the system available to them out in the field or wherever they're at. The data lives in the cloud. It can be accessed online or disconnected. What you're viewing here is the iPad setting and what they can view on their mobile devices. So you have all the layers associated with the wastewater system. You can turn them on and off depending on what they're looking at. Here I'm identifying a pipe. You see the attributes associated with the pipe. And what's really nice, so we have, the pipe diameter score, your criticality, survey information. And what's really nice is you have that CCTV log right at their fingertips. They can pull it right up. They can look at the distances for the taps. A resident calls, okay, I need to measure out this distance. That's where their tap is at, all out in the field, at their fingertips. So all that televising is accessible. The PDF here. And I'll also show a manhole inspection. So, jumped ahead. You can search by an address, so hey, they get a call. It can take you right to that address. You can ask for directions right from it, see what's around there. You can also search a specific asset ID based on, a map or a different asset. So here we're looking at a manhole. You can see the iPad is responding to the search, and I'm opening up the manhole inspection. So this manhole inspection form is MACP certified in all of the required fields. There's a lot of fields, so I kind of take the time to show all the measurements. They look at the manhole from all the different sections, give it its rating, all the materials, all that valuable information to get what condition is that asset currently in. And then, so they look at the different pipe connections, up to 6. They take photos of that as well. And before this, you just had the record drawing. So having all that information in one place is so powerful. So here I'll show you the photos that they took out in the field. So they always take one overall, so you know kind of where you're at, what your surface type is. And this one's a fun one,
Which we'll talk about in a later, that particular one.
So that's interesting. They can zoom in on that. And then they take a picture of the chimney as well.
Can you go back to that?
Yeah. This one?
So when you did this, John, were you involved?
Some, yes, they did most of it then.
When you see a manhole like this, obviously it needs some work.
Yep.
So what happens from when you take a look at it to today?
Well, it's actually, we put it on your list for the next round of rehab, so we're gonna get there.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So engineers reviewed it. They call them out. They give them their rating, and then Maria will go into the criticality component.
Is the manhole covers identified that map to the serial number or whatever you guys have here?
We have the type of cover it is, holes, things like that, but not a serial number.
There's no number that just kind of ties it out to, this plan.
ESS.
The manhole, all the assets aren't uniquely numbered, and that manhole inspection corresponds to it. So all your assets are uniquely
So
identified.
each manhole has its own number.
Yeah, but I think what he was asking, is that manhole traceable to that location?
Yeah.
By
Yeah,
some level of
absolutely.
ID?
Yeah.
So if
Yeah.
we switch to manhole covers, you can tell.
Well, the cover isn't necessarily the important part, it's
Important
actually
part, right.
the
But I think
structure
that's what he was
itself.
asking, if
I was
there's
just asking
traceability.
if it is labeled so that
The-
in the event someone
Right,
gets
the-
across.
The asset is tied to its location,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
so in the GIS is how accurate, what distance?
They're survey grid,
And what is that?
sub-centimeter.
What is it?
Sub-centimeter?
Okay, so less than a 7 centimeter, you can actually go in the field and locate that with your iPad. So in the dark, with not seeing anything, you could physically walk to it, just like the GPS on your boat or whatever it might be, but it's sub-centimeter, so it's that close. So.
So what I wanted to do next is show you that same information, and this is just the web viewer. So this is loaded, there's a computer downstairs that has this loaded up on there, and this is the exact same information, we're just viewing it in a desktop application. So multiple ways you can view the data, and I'm just simply zooming. So again, we can see that pipe information, and again, you can pull up the CCTV log and scroll through that. And same thing, so we have kind of widgets, that are user friendly here. Can show you what's on the map, what the different symbology is. You can turn different layers on. So you can see these X's popped up. So here's that manhole inspection again. You can see how much information there is. So I'm just gonna jump to the bottom because that's where the fun stuff is. And then the photos. So this one's
Better one.
Yeah, she started with a bad one.
That's the one John works in.
yeah. So that's what GIS is and what we've built for you guys. And what's also a really powerful tool is you can measure. So say, hey, you get a call, I'm having a backup, what's your address? You search it, okay, here's this manhole. Based on the log, you're like 200 feet out. Okay, I now know where I need to go walk and address. Yeah.
Do you have any TV examples on your presentation?
Videos?
Yeah.
I do not. So the videos that the logs correspond to or correlate to, there's 1 terabyte worth of data, so it's too much. You'd be paying so much for storage in the cloud. So there's a dedicated server that all of those videos have been delivered to. So if you do need to actually look at the video, you just have to get it at the server. You
So-
can't host it in the cloud.
But what you can do is, let's say you had a stretch of pipe you wanted to look at, let's say SS3044 to SS3045.
Yeah.
You can actually click on that pipe segment and pull up the video for that pipe segment and physically watch the camera feed going down that pipe to look at the actual condition when it was televised. And then you can see taps coming in, and we've used this on multiple occasions when a resident has an issue with a backup or something. We can actually physically go and watch the video of the sanitary sewer in front of their house and where their tap comes in and take a look at their tap and see if it's compromised at all. And we actually have brought them in to the DPS department and actually let them sit there and watch that video to see exactly what we're looking at. So that's another very valuable tool, is being able to actually watch the video on these and then see, once again, those measurements. I mean, the reports are nice because you can see those, but you can actually physically see where they're coming in and along that stretch, and it's got a counter on it, so you actually see how far along you are and whatnot. So.
Another item I just want to touch on is we can also build out dashboards. So as the project was going, this would populate automatically as the field crews were inspecting out in the field, so we could get, how much are we completing and the time frame. And then also the CCTV program, how much has been done of the system as a whole and how much is remaining to do. So does anyone have any other questions? Okay, I'm going to turn it back to, I'll do one more.
I will make one mention.
Yeah.
The GIS system is only as effective as it's kept up to date. So it is an ongoing maintenance thing that we're going to have to do as pipe segments are replaced or repaired. We have to get that CCTV uploaded into the system and update, the condition of that pipe in the system. So there is going to be some ongoing work that's associated with this that we'll have to budget for. But, the vast majority of the work has been completed with the build out of the base information that we need.
Right.
Now it's just an updating thing.
Right, like as you saw, that one log was from 2020. Well, once you'd have your CCTV program going, you want that next year that it was televised so you can track change over time. So that's the maintenance. And
If
it's,
you build new things, if development comes in, you've got a bunch of new sewers, you want to add those up back into the GIS system. So you do have to keep it updated.
And in terms of doing that, whether it's in the sewer pipe or at the plant, how's that going to work? Once a year, we do it, update it?
Well, I mean, like the TV work will be redone on a rolling 5-year schedule. So we'll be able to update that yearly depending upon where they're at. As work is done on the sanitary system, I think a follow-up to that project will be to update that either through an ongoing arrangement with an engineer or, trained in-house staff. Our DPS employees have gone through quite a bit of training on how to use this, but also how to locate, structures and use the GIS location system. We actually have a GIS locator, right?
Yes.
GPSing, I'm sorry. GPSing locator piece of equipment, an Arrow is the brand that we can use to do that. It's just, with the small staff that we have, it might be better off working with the engineer to have that updated on an annual basis. And I think actually this year we've put some money aside in our budget to make sure we have
So
funds.
you do it annually, is
Yes,
what I'm asking,
yeah.
okay.
It's an ongoing thing, and then you're basically reevaluating everything on a 5-year cycle, so.
then last thing I'll touch on is we did digitize where you have record drawings, and those polygons you can click on in the GIS and pull up the record drawing. So if it's an as-built, you have that digital copy. We scanned all of those and attached them to the database as well.
So you no longer have to go find, the blueprints, pull them out. When somebody calls, you can just sit on your computer, pull it out, if a resident calls or if you've got some questions. So the whole point of this is everything is in one spot, right? So it's fingertips for John and Derek.
Question that I have though, this is only for sewer sanitary. So do we have something similar for our water system?
Took the
We'll
words
talk
out of
about
our
that
mouth.
later. You're jumping ahead, but yes.
Yes.
The answer is yes, but.
This is really
Yeah.
a great tool. This really is neat.
So I'll touch that, and yes, we're working on adding the water system, but the other things you guys can start thinking about is we've got communities that use it for a lot of things. The fire department uses it to figure out its hydrants. The clerk's office for elections. We've got a lot of communities that are using for sidewalk evaluation. The marijuana thing is, which I think Melissa spends half her time on communities trying to figure out where, the marijuana, keeping it away from residents. So you can start using GIS for a lot of different things as you go. I mean, the base of it is now built, so now it's a lot easier to add other things to it. So just something to keep in mind. All right, so once we did the GIS, Melissa touched on this a little bit. We did a manhole inventory and condition assessment. So the township's got 1,645 manholes that we are aware of. We were able to go out and survey the GPSing, locating them, and then physically opening them and inspecting 1,295 of them. The others we couldn't. They were either buried, there was cars on top of them and stuff. So the inspections were done according to MACP standards. And what that is, it's a national standard for doing manhole inspections. They've got the set questions, they set multiple choice answers, all that stuff. So as Melissa mentioned, you pop open the manhole, and you go through it section by section, the frame, the cone, the chimney, the pipes coming in, and you fill it out. It's about, 40 questions, I think. And there's an example of one there, and there's an example of our guys surveying. And the township staff have been trained for MACP inspections, so any new manholes you guys get, they can do all the inspections going forward. So that was part of it, and as part of that, you do the condition assessment of the manholes, and I think we showed you one good one and one bad one. Here's some bad ones that we talked about. These are some of the worst manholes we found. 1,200 and something we inspected, so you can see some of them. Obviously, that first one has got a lot of calcification. The second one looks good, but you can see the weeping groundwater coming in. That's water we try to keep out of your sanitary system because you don't want to pay to treat it. The third one, you can see a manhole where the outside structural is failing, the liner. And then the fourth one's kind of similar to that first one a little bit. So we found some good bad ones, but we did. Pipe inventory and condition assessments. So I think Melissa mentioned a bunch of times the CCTV, and that's the closed circuit televising of the pipes. Pretty much the majority of the pipes have been televised over the 5-year cycle. You can see the color coding in the map there. Those are the different years that each section was done. You can see there's some that are not color coded, so those are the ones that got missed. All that was done in accordance with PACP standard, which is the same standard that the manhole one is done. And that was obviously, we didn't do that. That was contracted out to Safeway. Yep. And Serco managed all of that and did all the evaluation of that. So of the 400,000+ feet, about now 343,000 of them have been televised. And there's a camera kind of up there. Some of the interesting things we found, there's just 3 of them here. You can see there's a pipe here with multiple cracks and fractures. The one in the middle is a pipe that has a post that ran through it. Nothing like a contractor who didn't know there was a pipe and decided to keep drilling. And the last one is another one with a piling, and then roots coming in through that piling that got through it. So stuff that you find. So.
One question. You mentioned, I forget the exact number of manholes you inspected, but there were manholes you couldn't find. Didn't the televising find those manholes?
Some we did, but some we never got a chance to go through during this period. We had a deadline to meet, so there's a list of them that.
So they should show up on the video.
Some do if we did, yes.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
One other thing is when you take a look at the asset map, you know, the manholes are organized at equal spacing a lot of times. So you have a suspected location for each one of those that they'll have to go back to, because you might have, you know, one that was located here, but then the next one you couldn't find for another 700 feet. Well, you know that the spacing should be, I don't know what the average space was, 1,200 feet.
So that's a
400
work in
feet.
progress then,
Yeah.
to still finish all
Yeah,
that.
I mean,
That-
there's
that just
always
hadn't
gonna
been
be, yes.
Left
Yes.
aside and forgotten about.
No, we were
Okay.
trying to hit, we wanted to hit a certain percent that we wanted to make sure we, got over 80% as the first round. And yes, when we'll get to the CIP, you'll show one of the items is to inspect the missing ones.
Some of the challenges, some of these mains and some of these structures are down near the waterfront, and they were either submerged or, when they televise these lines, they do it with a TV truck and a Vector truck, and being able to get down and accessing some of these areas with these large pieces of equipment is difficult. So one of the challenges we're going to have in the next round of this is to work with potential contractors to figure out what methods are available to be able to do that work in these more difficult areas. Not every sanitary manhole or pipe, sewer pipe, is located next to the road. A lot of them are in rear yards along the canal, which it's very difficult to get to. So
Those were the horizontal assets. Now for the first vertical assets, you have 5 pump stations. I think we've got them listed here. So for every pump station, we went in there, we did a inventory of all the assets, every pump, every valve, every hatch, every wet well, and then a condition assessment. So we have special forms for pumps and things to look for in a pump. We have forms for valves, forms for heaters, forms. So we did that, so every pump station was inspected, and then at the wastewater treatment plant, with the help of Ryan and his crew, we went through and did the same thing. Did an inventory of all the vertical assets at the pump station. We divided them into these categories, and then just to make them easier to handle, and then did an inventory of them all. The site visits, as I said, we went out there, did the site visit, walked through all of them, and reviewed the history with the operators to get out that inventory and condition assessment.
Maria, could you go back to that original one at the plant right there? I'm just taking a look at what all the categories are here. Where's the equalization basin in there? Is that the retention basin?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And then it's pump station.
I just wanted to digest that a little bit.
Yep,
Okay.
no problem. Good?
Good.
Okay.
Anybody have a question on that?
Nope.
Okay.
So once we have an inventory, so now we've inspected all the manholes, we've inspected all the pipes, what to do, right? So for each manhole and each pipe and each vertical asset, and this is a EGLE requirement, we come up with a rating, a 1 through 5. And the 1 through 5, with 1 being good shape, great, brand new, 5 is the holy cow, we need to fix this pretty quick, right? So we do that, and then EGLE requires us then to divide it, come up with a probability of failure rating and a consequence of failure rating. Probability of failure is how likely is this asset to fail. So that's part of the condition rating. When we did the condition, we came up with a probability of failure. So if it's 5, oh boy, it's going to fail. If it's 1, it's brand new. Then there's the consequence of failure, the COF, and that's how important is my asset to my system. When you have a lot of assets, you got to prioritize which ones you want to fix. My example that I use is I've got a pump station, and it's got a pump that's got a 5 rating and an air condition that's got a 5 rating. But you only have so much money. Well, you want to fix the pump first, because that pump fails, that pump station is useless. The air condition could probably wait. The guys may sweat a little bit and not, but it can wait till you have the money. So the consequence of failure dictates how important is that asset. That pump is way more important than that air condition is to that pump station, right? So each asset gets a probability of failure rating and a consequence of failure. What it's in condition and how important it is, 1 through 5. And then you multiply those two to get the business risk exposure for that asset. I didn't come up with this. This is EGLE. Phil is giving me a look of like, what the? so
And the metrics.
so that's the rating. So assets that are 16 to through 25 business risk means they've got both a high probability of failure and a high consequence of failure. Those are the assets you want to fix, right? Those are the reds. Those are the ones that you should have on your list to fix immediately. The ones that are green are those low priority. They're neither that important to your system, and they're in reasonably good condition. You can ignore. The ones in the middle, it depends, right? How much money you have, what's your plan, you decide that. But EGLE requires that anything that's high priority should be on your list to fix. So each asset, each manhole, each pipe, each vertical asset got this asset criticality done to it. Make sense? All right. Pardon?
In the red? Is that how you read that?
Where's-
25, 20, 20?
No, that's
16?
just the matrix score. If it's a 5 and a 5, it's a 25. It's a 4 and a 5, it's a 20. So any assets that's 16 through 25 is red.
So that doesn't tell us how many assets
No,
it is.
that's just the matrix we have to use. So this is an example of the asset spreadsheet that we did. So for every asset, these are for the, I can't read. These are the manholes. So these are, I just took a snippet of one. So the asset name is the unique asset name for the manholes. Where is it located? It's MACP rating. Then the probability of failure, which is the one colored. You guys can see my mouse, right? Yep. And then the overall consequence of failure, and then BRE score at the end. And the colors match that matrix. So it's just an example. Now, the way we did consequence of failure, we did have some criteria to determine the consequence of failure, its size, where it's located, so we had to standardize the matrices. But we did that for every asset in the system.
How many assets did we have?
Well, we had 1,600 manholes. It's the next slide. Okay, quiz me. All right, here we go. So manholes. We had 1,645 manholes total. So 70 manholes we came out in the BRE that we need to fix kind of round 1. They're pretty important. Another 89 in round 2. We had 1,660 pipe segments total in the whole system. 1,384 of them were televised, And of those 115 segments, we recommend rehabbing in round 1 and 68 in round 2. And then we had 470 vertical assets. Those were prioritized really with the ACO stuff first, right? We all knew that had to come first, and then we put stuff up. So if you want to add those 1,645 plus 1,660 plus 470, that's how many assets,
4,000 assets.
yes, in your system. Sense? All right. So that's criticality, that's required. Level of service is a tricky one that EGLE requires everybody to do, and it's basically asks the community to decide what they want to deliver, the level of service they want to deliver to the residents. And it's a balancing of you want to fix everything, but you also want to maintain reasonable sewer rates and reasonable, expectations of the system. So, and EGLE has some standards, so we all sat down together and kind of came up. These are the 4 bullets that we agreed that we'll do level service on. Is safeguarding public health and the environment, meeting the equal requirements. We have no choice. Operating the system to ensure it has sufficient capacity to reduce the chances of sewer overflows, right? Nothing we want to do want to increase you guys' overflows. You already have an ACO, so we want to, everything we do is try to maintain that. And maintain the equipment and assets at a level that meets customer and regulatory needs, right? So we kind of kept it light. It's just something EGLE requires us to do. O&M strategy, one of the things we also looked at is your current O&M program. And what is the current one, both at the wastewater treatment plant and within the system? What's working? And then tying it back to level of service, what should your O&M program be? Are there any gaps in the system? And kind of what staff and equipment are needed. Based on that, and based really on your NPDES permit, you're going to required to clean and televise your whole sewer system every 5 years. Can't get out of that one. So that's about 80,000 feet a year that you guys have to televise a year. As part of that, we're adding the manhole inspections to that program. So keep it on the same 5-year cycle. So when you do the pipes, you do the manholes. So that's 330 manholes a year. The one thing I'll say there is we've already gone through and did the MACP one, right? We popped open all those manholes and we answered all those 40 questions. Most of those questions, the next round, you don't have to do anymore. You don't have to figure out what material the manhole is. That's not going to change. Measuring the rim to invert, that's not going to change. Number of, the things that are going to change are probably 10 questions of what condition is the rim in? What conditions are the walls in? Have they gotten worse? So going forward, those manhole inspections will become a lot easier, except for the new ones, right? Any new one, we have to do the complete one, and the rest you just have to do a simple version of it. So it's 330 manholes, but it's a much easier inspection program. And then we went through and we updated the O&M program for the pump stations and wastewater treatment. For every asset, we sat down with Ryan and his group and, when should this asset be inspected? How often? Is it quarterly? Is it monthly? Is it annually? And came up with that spreadsheet for that. So that's the O&M program. Okay, the last item is the CIP. As part of this asset management, EGLE requires us to do a 20-year CIP, looking forward, so we did it through the year 2042. Knowing that the first 5 years of that CIP are really solid, the next 15 are sort of theoretical, right? And we added a 3% annual inflation, which who knows, maybe too little, too much, that's a guess. But we used the ACO requirements, the remaining useful life of each asset, the BRE score that we talked about, staff knowledge, repair history to come up with the CIP. So it didn't just use the BRE score, which is pretty theoretical, but it used that in combination of all the other things to come up with a 20-year CIP. And I don't think you guys can see this very well, but even I can't see this very well. But so the first one, so the components are on the left. On top is all the years, all 20 years. So you can kind of see them from 2023 all the way to 2042. And then what's going to be done. So the first section, this first part is all about the manholes. So the first two you can see here is GPS remaining manholes that were not GPS, and inspect the remaining manholes that were not inspected, and then proceed and start doing a 5-year inspection program. So you can see every year there's a cost for manhole inspections, this row right here. And then the idea is every 5 years you'd find things that need to be rehabbed, you come up with designing a bid package to go out to rehab it, and then you'd rehab them. And then you start all over again, and then rehab them. And, inspect for 5 years, rehab, inspect. The first ones down here are the ones that we've already found. So that first section here is that round one that's already been identified, and I think there is a plan to start going after those and fixing those bad ones that you guys just saw this year. Next is the pipes. Same thought is every year put a bid package together to go out to bid to do the CCTVing. The green is doing the CCTVing, and then every 5 years come up with a plan to line and fix those pipes that need rehab. And then but we start with 2 rounds early on to get the bad ones that we've already found done first. So that gives you the total for the horizontal assets, and then in purple are the vertical assets, which is really hard to do, but there's a big detailed spreadsheet that comes down and adds up to all those items that need to be done in the vertical assets. You can see the first few years of the first 2 years of the purple are the ACO $7 million, $8 million in work. That's already in here. So what that looks like is that. So the dark blue are the vertical assets, the lighter blue are the horizontal assets. You can see how much per year over the next 20 years. And the red line is the total, with the total being, so right now there's an estimate for $40 million worth of work over the next 20 years. That's with 3% inflation. When we did this, ignoring the first 2 years, we tried to stabilize and move so that you try to be as even as possible each year with your CIP, and it's not going too much up and down. But just note, after the first 5 years, it really is just a placeholder right now for the things that may be coming. That's kind of what we did. I did want to show you there is a 900-page report that details all of this.
Not going to read it all?
If you want to, we can pull it up. Derek's got a copy of it. Eagle's gotten a copy of it. We did submit it before May 1st, the deadline. We haven't heard comments back from them. We're waiting to hear. But it's been submitted, and now it's just a matter of every year you have to submit to Eagle an update of here's what we did this year, here's what we're going to do next year. It's just a few pages that I think you guys will take care of and submit, just so they know that you guys are committing to it. This is how much we CCTV'd this year. This is how many manholes we did. Here's what we did. Here's the ones we found. Here's a program we're going to do in a few years to fix all of these that we found, just to keep the system going.
As was mentioned, I think earlier in the presentation, we're in the process of doing a similar type asset management plan for our water system. So I believe that's what, a 2-3 year process to go through that?
The difference with the water is it's a desktop exercise. We don't go out and we can't physically inspect the water main. We could, but it'll be in the millions and millions and millions to, send a camera through the water main. We don't. So what we do is a desktop exercise. We look at water main breaks, history, we look at, the age of the system, and, we look if it's undersized, we look at your water reliability study, if there's issues with pressure, and that's how we develop the criticality on the water system. There's just no way to do it physically.
And the GIS component to that is the location of valves, hydrants.
All of that's been located.
And then mapped out, overlaid over the top of this existing base map, so you'll have a sanitary sewer level and a water level, and then you could actually put them over the top of one another.
And in the future, you can add your sidewalks if you want. You can add, there's communities that add every road sign to GIS because they want to keep, it's endless what you can do with it after that. That's really up to, we've got road signs, we've got the
Storm sewer is a big part.
Big for communities.
But being a township, we're not
You guys
responsible
don't?
for the storm sewer, but like in cities, they'll have storm sewer. And actually, they'll televise their storm sewer as well, so you can actually review the condition of the storm.
So a question on the water system. Will you end up with the geolocation for every fire hydrant?
Yes.
Can you export that in an Excel file?
Yes, and we can give the hydrants to the fire department.
Because our applications, we can upload,
Yep.
Yeah. We
and
do
we
it
go,
for
I am
neighboring-
responding, it pops up. We've got a lot of them in, but we do it by driving up and going, where are we at? And then entering it in the map.
So here's a preliminary of your water system. We're working on it. It's not complete, but she's showing you the water system right now. What's already been GPSed.
Yeah, so the reds are the hydrants, the white are the valves. Serco has gone through.
Can you
The-
highlight the hydrants?
Yeah, hold on, let me make this stand. There we go. So, I'm zooming in the whole thing, alright. So we'll have them named, we'll go through and you have the rim elevation and we'll populate manufacturer and all that.
Can you calculate flow?
Alkaline flow?
Don't you measure it?
No, you have to do a hydro.
Yeah, but I'm just mathematically, is it feasible, or you gotta, okay, because we've gotta test them all the time.
Yeah, you gotta do a hydro.
I wasn't sure if you can
Yeah.
do theory.
No.
This should get this, okay.
Well, you can model your system. So we do
model.
a hydraulic model of your water system, but that still requires some field
Yes.
measurements to
Yes.
calibrate the model.
Okay.
Yeah.
We've done that before.
So Hal, you want to come up here?
The township did prepare a reliability study whereby we sampled 25 hydrants and modeled the system, and we were able to identify some deficient sizes of the water mains that cannot provide the 1,200 gallons a minute at the hydrant. And that was what we based our capital improvement, the 5-year and 20-year capital
Okay.
improvement plan on. What we're doing with the asset management plan is similar to that, or a supplement to that, but that will dictate when and how much to spend to get the system up and running.
The information from the water reliability study will be
Will
incorporated.
be part of the asset.
Will be
management.
incorporated in that.
Yeah. because
So
it-
when would it be feasible to get a list of the hydrants?
Just
Just
like
a
their
listing.
coordinates, each.
Just
each
the
one?
coordinates?
We can do
Yeah,
that.
so they're gonna go through one more time, Serco will to GPS, because what we're doing now is going through the record drawings and adding in the pipes. So there are some assets that are buried, obviously hydrants are buried. But I would say after they go through again and make
So
sure.
by
they
late
gather-
summer, maybe?
Yeah,
Hoping, yes. Yeah.
that's for your fire department?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, we've helped neighboring communities upload.
Yeah, because we got a really nice app.
Yeah.
And then so like go into scene, we hit the app, it maps it, and we look for the hydrants. But all that's in there is what we put in manually. But if we're on East River and there's no cell service,
Yes.
we can't get the geo and get that to work, right? So it's haphazard. I mean, what we've done is good so far, but we can't get them all.
Yep.
But if we could take a database from this, upload that database into there and populate that map, then we can queue to make sure that every hydrant's identified.
Yes.
Because unless Les is in the truck, we may not know where every hydrant is.
One thing we'll say is, if we've got two databases for the hydrants, we should probably everybody be using.
Yes, same one. Same one.
Just saying.
Yes.
The fire department should probably have access to this, so that everybody's updating one, again, the whole is, we want
Yeah, 'cause
everybody to
it- yeah.
update one.
The fire department's only a user of this. We just
Yes.
want to make sure we know what's there
Yes.
so we can use it.
Yep.
And we don't pass hydrants or we bring the apparatuses in the right direction to get the best hydrant.
Yep. Fire hydrants, fire department loves the water GIS system once we
You
get
could
it.
probably take a look at pipe size and determine if this hydrant is on a different main that might have more flow than another main, right?
Good.
From the modeling, yes, you
Well,
can.
If that's kind of what your question is, hey, I'm gonna hook up to this 16-inch versus
Yeah,
this 6
and-
inch, right?
Well, and we don't want to take and open up two on the same main because now we're going to take in battle for the same level of water.
Right.
So if this main that makes us turn and for another 100 feet, we can tap a new portion of that grid, then we're getting basically unused water and now we're not going to take and compete for the
Right.
same water flow out of two hydrants that are, on the same line, 300 feet apart.
Ideally, it's, the best case scenario is if you can flow test every one of them, which you
Yeah,
can do.
ideally.
However, you can sample them and,
Yeah,
I
we
see
can-
what you're saying.
we
You
can
could
go
have a
through and sample
residual
and
flow,
test.
you open one hydrant, you lose flow on the other one,
Yeah,
so
now,
that'd be critical, yes.
Okay, so Two comments. on
Sorry to
this.
digress.
That's okay.
No, 2 comments. So what Lenny's bringing up, if this is critical for the fire department, let's consider that as a request from the commission to you, our engineer. As soon as that's available, we'd like to get it to the fire department.
Yeah, and I don't want to step away, but I'll step away for a second and show you what we use, so you can see kind of what we're looking for.
Yeah, we probably need to give you GIS.
So in here is mapping.
So what's this called?
I am responding.
Okay.
So if we go into I am responding.
And you can log in on the computer as well?
No, this is just, it's an app, so this app is for us. So
Okay.
Anybody watching, we're doing a test thing here in the chamber. If there's anybody watching.
Seeing the judge in his chambers.
So Derek, let me ask you a question while they're going through that.
Sure.
Back on Maria's chart where she had all the probability of errors and everything else, and she had that nice little areas of all the red issues. Do you know what those issues are? Do you know what those items are that have the consequence of failure and
We do,
high
yeah.
They were on
probability?
that list.
And that's
They
that
would've
slide
been
that
They
on
would
the
have
right
been on
side
the
of
list,
it.
but we have.
We didn't see any of the red.
We didn't see any of
Right,
those,
that-
so I
No.
just, yeah.
So if you refer back to the slide that she had where there were like phase 1, phase 2, and the assets that she has listed that needed to be repaired or replaced in those various phases, those are your top numbered.
Right.
And we have all that information so that when we look at what capital projects we're going to be doing, we have those identified and we can work on those in phase 1, phase 2, and then moving forward. So I think the biggest takeaway from this is, we have an asset management plan now. We have a capital improvement schedule. Our goal is to be able to make sure that the financing works to be able to fund what's necessary to keep up with the plan. And, we have multiple sources that we'll be looking at for funding it, whether it's rate structures
Yep.
or grants.
Yeah, just,
or,
just give
we
us a
have
few
some
months, we're
village
still
dollars.
collecting
I'll
all
figure
the
it out.
data. Yeah.
I'll figure it out.
So Hale and Maria, so are you done answering the question from Ray? I think so.
We're good.
Okay. So, I think Les will recall this, certainly John will, maybe you, Phil. We did the reliability study, when was the last one done? About 8 years ago?
Don't hold me to the date. Maybe sooner than that, maybe 6.
Okay.
We made the presentation to the board and the EPS commission then.
Now, if we do this asset management plan, will that take place of the reliability study?
There are two different things. Eagle requires that you do your reliability study every 5 years. Then, when you do that, we can embed it into the asset management plan as a part of. The capital improvement plans may have to merge together because we're going to have
Sure.
two capital improvement plans, one based on the reliability study, one based on the asset management plan. But most likely, they're very close.
Since Lenny raised the question, I just want to point out that the last time you were probably on the commission, when we did the last reliability study, the fire chief, Duncan Murdoch, came here. And if you remember, Les, they talked about the deficiencies in the East River Road not having a 12-inch main and West River Road not having a 12-inch main. And it was through the liability study that we issued the bonds, the $3 million projects, bonds to build those, complete that loop on the exterior of the island, which was very important.
Right.
So the reliability studies, I wondered if the asset management plan would replace it. You just said it wouldn't.
They'll work together. I mean,
They supplement each
yeah.
other.
So when this is produced, that'll be our new reliability study too at the same time? Using all the
do one.
data?
We were due to update the reliability study anyways, submit it to Eagle.
All right, so we talked about water a little bit. Are any more questions on the water while they're up? Because I would like Maria to go back. Oh, it's up here right now on the screen. This chart, I want to talk about that a minute. But that's on the sewer. So Hal, you can stay there. Derek can correct me if I'm wrong. So I see the first 2 years. If I'm reading this right, the $3 million or $2 million mark's way down it's a little above most of these,
Yep.
but even the short ones are $1 million. Now, our history has been, if I recall, John, correctly, we budget about 150,000 a year for sewer repairs. Unless we have a big emergency. And at the wastewater plant, Ryan, we, 400,000 a year? About that? So that's $500,000, so to speak. And all these are above that. So two questions. If we don't, we can always amend the capital plan, right? If we have to put things off, not because we want to, but without raising sewer rates, and it seems like it's reasonable to put things off, what kind of trouble are we going to be in if we don't meet their capital plan
Some things,
with the state?
so the CCTV, your whole, televise your whole pipes, all your pipes in a 5-year cycle is in your NPDS permit. So that, I don't think you can get out
Choice, yeah.
of that.
No, we're doing that.
Yeah, that one you can. Should you do the manholes with it? Yes. You don't have to, as long as you're not having CSOs and SSOs and, things are functional and things are not falling apart,
Okay.
they're not gonna come at you, but, it is recommended that you keep your system.
Fine.
So if we are going to spend 500,000 or 600,000 a year, and we do it religiously, if we can get away with it, I mean, without jeopardizing the system,
Yeah.
that's been our goal. So the other question I have for Derek, so you were able to get this $3 million grant in addition to the $10 million that was approved. Is it possible that some of that money in the grant money that saved us $3 million can be spread to help us reduce the impact and still use that money and spread it out over a number of years as well? If we saved $3 million up front on the main project, that would be, at $500,000 a year, that would be 6 years of this program. Do you
Absolutely.
understand what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. And a matter of fact,
In the bond money.
Right.
in a matter of fact, Maria Sohail and I were actually on a phone call earlier this week. We might end up having to use that money for other capital improvements in this capital improvement plan because there are some federal requirements on those dollars that require, like Buy American and Davis-Bacon and stuff that might require us to utilize that for other projects. So we're working through that right now, but yes, it'll be used to offset capital expenses that are shown on this chart here. One other item worth mentioning, the millage language that was passed in August was written in a way that it would be utilized for both the ACO but also capital improvements within the sanitary sewer system. So that tax capture can be used for this as well. So, and we did a limited tax millage rather than an unlimited tax millage so that we had a fixed levy moving forward versus an unlimited tax millage would only have allowed us to levy the amount that was necessary to fund the bond cost. So we actually were able to schedule that amount so that there was some leftover to help assist with this type of work, knowing that was coming due, that bill was going to have to eventually be paid. So there are a couple of different funding sources that we have to try to address these capital expenditures without hopefully having to increase rates to achieve, the proposed schedule here. So that's a bit of a work in progress, and the DPS Commission will be heavily involved in that. But obviously, we want to make sure that when we address these capital costs, these capital needs, they're not things that are just, we want to have them, we'd like to have them. I mean, Ray, you had mentioned there are critical assets here with a high consequence of failure that we really need to work on to make sure that we have a reliable system and we don't end up having a catastrophic failure that ends up costing more. So take care of the things that we should be taking care of now at a lower cost rather than dealing with a massive failure that's going to cause us more expense down the road. So there's a lot of different things at play here. So
Well, good explanation, because I know we've had some money for manhole repairs, rebuilding, but what you just said was, if we have some excess money from the work at the plant, and the manholes are important, we could take a good chunk of money and fix manholes, the ones that are in bad shape, in the first couple of years.
yeah, and actually we've already directed Raines to start taking a look at some of the most critical components, because I think there's probably 10, 15 manholes that really need to be done
Yeah.
ASAP, and then there's a couple of stretches of pipe that need to be done like ASAP to make sure that we don't have any real serious issues. As a matter of fact, they came across about 5 different sections that needed to be repaired back in the Douglas right-of-way when they were TVing that as recently as a couple of months ago or a month ago, and those were fixed right off the bat because they were in that bad of condition. So as we've been going through this, we actually have done some of the repairs that, we found to be, or the contractor found to be, super severe. I think one of those pieces of pipe that were shown to have a piece of sheet pile run through it, that was resolved a couple of months ago. So, we have been trying to stay on it if there was a situation that warranted immediate attention, so.
As you repair those and rehabilitate them, you gotta remember that part of the repair is minimizing the infiltration inflow coming into the system
Right.
that will save the plant money
Yes.
treating, or save us from having non-compliance SSOs with the Eagle. So overall, any repair we do is a benefit, not only for the longevity of the system, but for the process itself, for the hydraulic capacity of the plant and so forth. So
And I know we have some manholes right along the canal, edge of the canal,
Right.
so.
right.
Bill, a question for Derek on that grant. Was there an end date? In other words, was there a must spend by?
We asked that question, and the answer was surprisingly no.
Oh.
It was our allocation to be used when we want to use it, so.
Oh, okay.
We just got to make sure that we go through the required processes to certify the work. And a matter of fact, they even said that although the original grant application was put in for ACO work, they said that it's very simple to pivot those dollars to other sanitary-related projects. So it's not tied to that project. It's tied to sanitary work, but not tied to that
Gotta
specific
stay with the
project.
We
same.
can redefine the grant itself.
Okay.
Right, right. So we'll be working with the engineers to make sure that all the hoops are, jumped through to make sure that we're qualifying for the money. But at the end of the day, it probably looks like that money will be easier spent putting it towards projects moving forward than necessarily the ACO, because the way that the timing of that worked, that project was already to bid and pretty much awarded by the time we found out we had this money available. So to backtrack and make the project now qualify for all the federal requirements on those dollars is very difficult. So it might be better off just moving forward, but it's a savings of $3.5 million, no matter any way you cut it. It just might be savings on a different part, right, of our required work.
Thank you.
Yeah, are there other questions? Les?
Nope.
You're being awfully quiet.
Yep.
Any Ray?
I do a couple of quick things. So the database we have here now, and we're responsible to administer this and maintain this moving forward, the township is?
Data here?
Yeah, the database. So now the
The
township.
GIS database.
Yes.
This
Yeah,
is our
This-
plan.
It's our gig.
you own it.
Okay, I wasn't sure where that line of demarcation was. And based on what you folks have done, not just here but elsewhere, these first couple of years look pretty scary to me. Is that typically what you guys find out when you get through with this?
No, that's your ACO.
That's the ACO.
That's a big chunk of that is your ACO.
Oh,
That's that
okay,
10 million.
okay.
We just want to make sure it was
Okay.
incorporated,
Oh,
that
okay, okay.
everything's in
I
one
get it.
spot.
Okay.
Yeah. No,
Fair
no.
enough. My apologies.
Nope, no problem. Yeah, so the GIS space, yes, you own it.
Okay.
We still have access to it because we're still adding the water to it. And we have, we'll still be updating it for you, but you do own it. It's yours. You
Okay.
have the copy. And what we do is we have we update and we'll come in every now and then and bring in some of the stuff to it.
So like as the
She's
project,
the GIS. So.
as the project advances, I'll bring a hard copy of the database that gets saved on your network, but Fishback also maintains our like working copy. So you guys will always have a hard copy of your
Okay,
data
okay.
in addition to the access online.
Okay, so we also be working off the same rev level moving
Yes.
forward. Okay.
Yes. And it is yours, so we just want to make sure,
Okay.
there's some, they keep it and it's yours. You paid us to put it together, we did, it's yours.
Understood, okay.
Yeah,
Okay, this side, there, Linda or Dave, anything else?
Ladies did a great job.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
John, do you have any comments?
Great job, everybody. Thank you.
And great job, they helped us a lot, putting it all together, finding the manholes, and we're gonna still do that with the water. He's still not off the hook yet, so.
Ryan, and Derek, I do, and Sohal, I guess, the only other thought I have is, so when you went to comply with the ACO requirements for expansion, the things we had to do to expand the plant, we sell the bonds. And then Maria and her group comes along and they find all these other things.
Wait.
How would you characterize all the new things we've identified that have to be done at the plant that weren't in the compliance CIP, the capital plan for to comply with the ACO?
Well, the plant is a structure that's aging, and as it ages, the assets are aging that will eventually require to be maintained. And so what we did with the ACO is to add 1 MGD to the plant's capacity so we don't have too many SSOs, and that technically is supposed to bring us into compliance. However, if you don't maintain the system, what we try to resolve now with the ACO needs to be helped with the repairs to the system. We have to remove infiltration inflow to minimize the flow coming to the plant. One element we cannot control is the footing drains that are, of course, overtaxing the system. And that's what the retention basin is for. But we are hoping that with a new clarifier with the 1 million gallon extra MGD, we can minimize the number of SSOs that we have and keep us into compliance. If we don't, we'll have to do more. So, yeah.
Ryan, do you have any comments on this plan?
I mean, with the ACO work, if we have historical rainfall events and snow melts like that, where we get maybe an inch of rain in an hour, or multiple inches of rain within a half-hour, then even with an extra million of storage, you may have an SSO, but you hope you don't have that. But if it's an extreme rainfall event, there might not be much you can do, but you just have to hope that isn't going to happen. But then we just,
I know that you're working on HVAC system, right?
Yeah, we are right now. Yep.
And that's something that's extra, I guess, from the grant or from the $10 million, or no?
Yeah, I think we're actually looking at using grant dollars for it. So that project is early on enough where we can specify those federal requirements within the bid request. So you have to comply with this federal, that federal, this federal requirement on your pricing and your submittal. So, but Raines is putting that together right now.
With understanding that we may have to meet the requirements of the grant.
I understand. So is the HVAC, the need for that in your asset management plan? Okay. All right. I don't have any more questions. If there's no more, I want to thank you for your presentation.
Thank you. And we highly recommend you go down and bother Derek and play with the GIS at some point, so.
I think Lenny can do that.
I was going to say, I think Lenny's going to be the first one doing it. All right, thank you.
Thank you very
folks.
much.
Thanks for coming.
Next on our agenda is public comment, and I don't see any public here, so guess we'll move on from that. Ryan, you want to do your, any additional comments you might have right now?
All right. The primary, secondary sludge pump install is all complete. And that was by Weiss Construction. It went well. So we have 2 new primary sludge pumps and 2 new secondary sludge pumps for each final clarifier, which are up and working right now. And that just helps with our solids removal. So that's a big relief. We got that. Sludge haul went well this year. They were there for about a month, like usual. So that's all complete. The Veolia contract increase will go up by 5.79% overall, and that's actually figured out by a calculation using the CPI and ECI inflation figures, and that's in the contract, and that's just how much it was this year, just based on inflation.
And have you been discussing that with Derek?
Yeah, actually, the inflationary calculation was closer to 8%, but Veolia was willing to bring that down to what Ryan had mentioned, 5.5 or 5.9%, something like that. Because our contract is specific. I mean, it lays out what the allotment is, or the allowance is each year, and that's what it would have been if they weren't willing to work with us on that. So appreciate Veolia's understanding that everybody is dealing with high inflation, and that's not necessarily what, I think we probably thought we were going to be looking at when the contract was signed. So they were willing to work with us on that. And I want to say we had budgeted 7.5 or 8% in our budget for those expenditures, so they'll actually end up coming in lower than what we had put in the 2023-2024 budget.
Okay.
Yeah, and Veolia also said that our increase was average or actually lower than the rest of the Veolia sites in the U.S. So,
Oh, okay.
the ACO work is happening right now. The new final clarifier is being constructed right now. That's happening first right now, and that has no impact on the plant or operations. Next will be later this year, raw sewage pump 4 is being replaced, along with the intermediate lift pumps later this year. And we just have to make sure that we have the bypass pumping set up for all that, and we will, so that we can run the plant live while all this is happening. And we'll make that work so that we can maintain high flows even with all this happening.
And we still have the primary tank
Number 1,
number 1 going to be done yet?
it will.
You have a schedule for that yet?
Not yet. We issued that as a change order to Source and Rose.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. That's right.
The price was better than Weiss, so we're waiting for it.
All right. You're going to let us know, because I think at least Linda and Lenny might want to see it, or Ray want to see it when it's empty. That's something to see.
We'll have that emptied, yeah.
If you like sewage plants.
That first step's a big one.
Okay. Anything else?
The design build for the HVAC improvement is happening right now. It's a bid, and that's actually due May 25th. And that's in improvements include design, permitting, construction, removal, and disposal of the existing HVAC systems at the plant, heating, ventilation, air conditioning, and odor control system at the plant. So that's for the lab and office, which will put heat and air in there. And then in the primary room, we're getting a new ventilation in there. And then in the RBC room, a new air scrubber
Oh.
For all that, so.
It's all part of it then.
So that's all in there under the wastewater plant HVAC improvements.
Good.
So, nothing else. That's all I got.
All right, well, thank you.
Ryan, where are we at with the VFDs?
The contract is signed, we're waiting for schedule work. The
Alright.
insurance and bonds checked out, so.
Okay.
Okay, Ryan, thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is the Park Lane Award recommendation, and that would be on page 20 of your packet. Based upon the recommendation of the Grosse Ile Township Engineers, the commission hereby recommends to the Township Board an award of a contract to Al's Asphalt totaling $993,212.50, plus a 10% contingency for the paving of Park Lane between Bournemouth and Horse Mill. That's the recommendation. So Derek, or Sohail, do you want to address that? I guess we had 2 bids for the job,
Go ahead.
and they were considerably far apart, Ray.
And did you see all the differences?
And you can
We
see
did,
where,
we received 2 bids, one from Al's Asphalt, one from ASI. Of course, Al's came in closer to the estimated cost, so we're recommending award to them. They came in about almost $400,000 apart, which is shocking a little bit.
I guess it's a question of how bad somebody wants it. You can see that on the second page of the bid document, I did a little analysis. Almost 200,000 of the differential is buried into what's called cleanup and traffic control.
Yep, yep.
So what's happened there is that's where they're burying their profit, in those 2 figures. There was a number of other ones too, but
80,000 versus 4,500. Yeah, big difference.
Well, 146,000 versus 46,000.
Right.
There's
Yeah.
100,000.
For just seating. but
One thing we can't do is control how these people price their bids. I mean, we can notice sometimes that they're unbalancing their bid prices and call them on it, but we cannot dictate to them changing their bid prices after we open the bids. It's
Right.
so whichever way we review them and recommend them.
do you have any comments? Did you meet with Al's? or talk
We
to
have
them?
good experience with them. They've done work at the township before. They've done Lake and Rucker years ago. They've done the bike path work. They've done other roads elsewhere. So we're familiar with their work. It's a matter of getting them to meet the schedule, that's all. So.
Didn't they do church?
They did church also, that's correct. They did church.
Quick question for you on the bid. We were assuming a certain amount of base replacement. Is that correct?
There is some on Park Lane.
Yeah.
I think it's called undercut somewhere. That's item number 7, 750 cubic yards. If we encounter any soft material, we
Okay.
have them cut it and replace it with stone and before they pay.
But we had them bid it going right over the top of the existing base, or did we have them refreshing the top 2 inches in their bid? How did we assume the base prep?
I think we included, if I recall, I'm just gonna look at this, 4 inches of base or 6 inches of base. 4 inches of class 2 base. So-
Right, so I think we were talking about them analyzing the base when they get there to
Right.
see if the current base condition is good enough to be able to pave over,
that
then we'll save that amount.
Cost,
But it
yes.
is assuming, because it's a gravel road right now, we're not assuming that they're just gonna be able to pave right over the top of that existing base. We're saying that they're gonna have to pull off 4 inches. We had
Base it
them
and pave
price for pulling 4 inches off. But if they don't have to pull 4 inches off, if they have to pull off less or not any at all, then that would be a deduction in the,
Correct.
in the,
That would be money saved.
John, do you have any feel for that base on that road?
There are some wet spots that
Are?
they're gonna have to address.
Okay.
That's what the undercut is for in item number 7.
Okay, so can I have just to follow protocol, a motion to make the recommendation to the Township Board.
Motion.
Who made the motion?
Lenny.
Lenny? Is there support by Ray? Are there other further questions?
I just had one question. What's the length of this pavement process?
I think it's 3,300 feet. 3,300 feet?
Look at the restoration item. Just about.
Just approximately. I'm just curious as our cost per mile, so to speak. It's just.
It was either
It's about 3,300 feet.
3,300 feet.
3,300 feet, yes.
Of course, it's been a long time since we did a paving of a gravel road.
Right, yeah. I mean, this is going to be more expensive than just doing a
Right.
repaving. I was just curious.
Other questions? Hearing none. All in favor of the recommendation to make the recommendation to the Township Board to award to Al's Asphalt totaling $993,212.50 plus a 10% contingency for the paving of Park Lane between Bournemouth and Horse Mill. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
This item will go to the Township Board on the 22nd of May.
Next item is involves roads, and the recommendation here is to authorize a change order with Contractor Highway Maintenance. Jeff Demick was just here earlier, totaling $190,028.10 for additional chip sealing. And now it's time, so for Bridge Road, Dallas Court, and Mesa Island, now it's time to pass out these maps.
And one quick catch that actually John noticed. It's Bridge Road Meridian to Park Lane, not Bridge Road Meridian to East River.
I'm passing these maps out, and two of them are for John Keim. Before we discuss this chip sealing further, what I'd like you to do, Derek, you have a copy of the map, right? Does Sohail have a copy of the map?
I don't think he has one.
Sohail?
Is there an extra up there?
Here you go. Yeah, there's an extra.
Special.
Derek is, I think, worked with John, and I know we did a little drive after our last meeting, but you want to explain there's a lot of stuff on here now, and you can see the code with the color code. As far as chip sealing, we have the contract that we originally bid for Grow and sections of East River and for a little bit on South Point, but there were some additional items.
And that's what the action item is for this evening, is to add Dallas Court, Bridge Road, and then East River Road, which would be from the Mesa Island Bridge to the Hickory Island Bridge, to chip seal those additional areas. So that was actually approved at the board meeting last night, contingent upon you guys okaying that today. So there's that. We also, at our meeting last month, had talked about adding intersection work. And those intersection proposals are indicated in purple on the map here. I believe we already have awarded Swan Island Drive. I believe South Point was on there, South Point. And we would like to add Grow at East River, so I'm moving south to north. Bellevue, West River Road Ramp. Those are the three additional locations we'd like to add. And I think that location up there on Bridge, I think we'll be able to address that under a water main repair, because there was some concern at the last meeting about that southwest corner and its condition. But I know we had a break there that will probably get patched under our restoration, I would assume. So that wasn't on the map, because we'll
Given
probably...
to the contractor yesterday.
Okay, so we'll probably do that through water, so that's why it's not on here. So we talked about intersections, we've talked about chip seal. Chairman Kostick and I drove the island a couple of weeks ago after our meeting, actually the day after our meeting, and looked at different concrete locations. So those are all marked in yellow, and this map doesn't necessarily delineate between like sectioning, which means like replacing a pad of concrete joint to joint, or actually basically the joint repairs, which is like 12 inches on either side of the joint that's failed. So the map doesn't differentiate between those two, but those are the concrete areas of concrete we would like to do work on if at all possible, depending upon how our budget comes in for our bids come in for that work. So that's along Manchester, some work at the intersections at Groseal Parkway and Park Lane. A lot of concern on Gray's, Cadillac Circle, Rivard Court, some joint work on Park Lane, some joint and pad replacements in Calm Meadow Court, Country Club Lane, those areas, and then up in the older subdivisions, Canterbury, Burning Bush, those were kind of sectioning. We wanted to try to spread the money across the island to make sure that everybody receives some sort of benefit from the road millage. So that's why you see all that concrete spread across the island. But of course, it's not in areas that there isn't need. So there is need in all of these areas. And then also with the additional money that we have available from the bids coming in fairly low, we wanted to add in a couple of other asphalt resurfacing projects that would be Church, west of Meridian. So that would just probably be a 2-inch because that road isn't in horrible condition. We wanted to do some work right outside the wastewater treatment plant because that road's in pretty poor condition right there on West River Road. And then we're already doing Bellevue, and we're already doing like some other areas that were part of the original spec. But that's pretty much the total list of additional work that we're looking at wanting to complete. In addition to the map that you received tonight, you should have also received this handout in your packet too that kind of details out those areas that we discussed when we were talking about the map here this evening. So you actually have a list there as well in addition to a visual aid. So any questions about that?
I got just one comment, and John, you'd probably see it, but originally, and it's right there in front of the hardware store on Macomb Street, but where it could have been just joint field, looks like that concrete is really starting to break apart, and with the amount of truck traffic that is going on in front, up and down Macomb Street, that might be something you guys want to look at. 'Cause
There's actually a couple on there. One's in front of CVS as well, is just as bad as that one that Ray's referring to. And then Chairman Kostick had mentioned to me some issues with Playscape Drive, which is something we should consider what we want to do with that. I know that Playscape's being removed, but we still got a lot of traffic in and out of the post office right there.
Yep. What we can do is we can kind of move the bids around or move the project list around as we get the bids for the concrete. Do you know when concrete's due? Not yet. Okay. All right. So, but we're looking at bidding that right now.
So John, will you look at the ones on Macomb?
I'm
And
quite aware
Playscape?
of both of them. Yes.
We're trying to prioritize this. We don't have to spend it all in one spot, spread it out. But you guys, that'll be a decision you'll make in the field. Okay?
Like Ray said, it should have been addressed a few years ago. Now it's gotten almost to the point you have to do the whole pad, not just the joint.
yeah, it just seems like it's getting worse every other week you drive by there, and it's just getting bigger and bigger.
Every time they put salt on there, it just blows it out worse.
Yep.
We're looking at probably right around 1.7 million in available funds to be able to spend on concrete and additional asphalt work this year, and that already assumes the increase in the chip seal work. So what we'll probably do is $1 million worth of concrete and probably 700,000 of additional asphalt work. So we're trying to figure that out with Rains right now as far as what change orders need to happen to make that work and get those change orders in front of the board to add the additional asphalt work. And then, obviously the concrete bid will be something totally different that'll come before the board for approval and you guys for approval. So.
Can I ask a question of Sahel while you're here? You're out for bid for the concrete work right now?
Almost, we're finishing the specifications. We are putting the specs together so we can advertise and go out for bids.
How did you measure the areas? How are you doing?
We didn't measure the areas. Not Ryan, Brent's actually working on putting the spec together at Rains. He wanted to know what the approximate project list was. So what he'll probably end up coming up with is, price it out per work type. And then we kind of know what the budget is going to be, $1 million. So we'll kind of back into that prioritization and the project selection as we have a contractor on board. It will just allocate the money as as far as it goes based upon footage or whatever it is. So we know what we're going to do is we're going to specify probably multiple different types of concrete replacement at various depths. It'll be a square yard.
Per square, correct.
Per square yard price or cubic yard price, and then for the jointing, it'll be the width and depth. Yep, and type. So we'll end up with hey, this is how much it's going to cost for these various types. This is where we're going to allocate the money and how far ever it's going to take us. So.
Okay, and then between you, Derek, and John, and whoever on your staff, you're going to go figure out where we're going to spend it.
Yes, sir.
And I think that you guys will be involved in that as well. I mean, I think we got a pretty good idea. We want to prioritize sectioning on, I think, Grays and Cadillac Circle, Rivard Court, Cadillac Court, but we also want to make sure that we're spreading enough of it around the community. So,
Right.
So yeah, we'll
So
figure
you're
it
going to
out.
come back at our June meeting.
We should have a better idea in June. Yep.
And the one question is on Grays Drive, of course, and that section of Park Lane off Grays, whatever we're going to do in there, and there's a lot of need there, especially towards Meridian. It's got to be done before school starts.
That's correct. Between.
We award the contract, it's got to be able to
Do
be
that first.
completed.
That's correct.
And while you're at the podium, I just have one other comment. I'm going to talk about these intersections. The intersection of Grow up here at East River, John has brought to me, it's very uneven. We got some edge failure there. And so we're going to have the chip seal on East River come and join up with the new pavement, right, Sohail?
That's correct.
So all we wanted to do is, when we drove it, is to look at the whole intersection, and you might want to stop the chip seal a little short.
Sure.
I don't know how far, if you're going to go 50 feet either side of the intersection.
Rains Company's already on that. It's marked currently.
Yeah, there's
Okay.
pink marks out there. Yep.
Oh, you got it, all right.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
The intersection of Bellevue is troubling to me because of Meridian. And John knows this because there's always gravel on the road. And John, that intersection is a little bit offset, right? You know what I'm
Correct.
saying?
Yes.
So I don't care if it's offset, but whatever we do, we got to pave it enough so there's not gravel all over that road anymore. You know that.
Yes.
And you got to make sure.
And a lot of that was due to the water main break that was in that location. After we put the pavement back, that stopped a lot of that gravel, but there is a grading issue there that should be addressed.
Oh, I don't know how you get that information to Sohail's people, but I wanted to call that to your attention. And then the other one is over at the ramp off the bridge on Parkway, coming down by West River Road, by the golf course. Phil and I have talked about this for a long time. We want to just fix that up. Now, the road needs to be rebuilt. And on the southeast corner, where you've worked on the drainage problem, the pavement's chipped out of there right now. There's a big couple of holes there. I ran into it the other day.
It's on the list to be addressed. We just discussed that yesterday as well.
We want to fix that up, and that's important. And then I mentioned to Derek that you put a new drain in, right? That runs
Correct.
to the canal. I'd like to see some aesthetic improvements there.
That was dispersed yesterday as well. Sorry, Bill.
I don't know what you'll come back with on that, but that fence that's there, I mean, and I know when the canal was put in, the ground's real rough through there. Not much you can do with it, but I don't know what you'll come back with, but
We're
just
gonna
wanted to
tune
call
it
that
up
to your
for you.
attention. And the problem is everybody gets off the ramp, that's what they see, right?
Yeah, I think that the idea was to pull the fence out there and then kind of grub that area, leave the more mature trees, but just kind of clear the brush out so you have a a view to the river rather than a view of a rusty fence and, you know, a bunch of fragments.
Whatever you come up with, you might even want to put
Just
some,
put bushes there.
some
Make-
bushes
make
or
it-
something.
Make it
you may want to
look
try,
good.
maybe even hydro seed the area where you cut the new canal, or the drain in. Maybe try to get in there and level it a little bit and hydro seed it, just look better, but clean it up. That's a long-term goal for this summer. Those are my comments. I'm done. So,
Okay.
on the road program, I'd like to ask for comments on that. We'll start with Les. Les?
The only comment I got in here is, what, you got Bellevue on there, Mark. What are you gonna do on Bellevue?
Pave it.
We're gonna pave it.
Shave and
Pave it,
Pave it.
rebuild it, or chip seal it?
Pave it.
Okay. Okay,
We talked about that, using as much of the old plan as we could.
yep,
And all those streets like 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th Street, we're gonna go in 50 feet. Remember that?
yep.
Okay.
That's all I got to say.
And unless Dallas Court, we drove that, and that's ripe for chip sealing. You're familiar with that too, right?
Yes.
You agree with that?
Oh, yeah. I don't agree with it, but I know somebody who does. My
Well-
son lives on Dallas.
Oh. All right. Lenny?
Yes, sir. Just 2 points of interest. One would be that West River and Church, and if you're going to pave Church, if you can, just soften up that curve, because turning right as you're heading north and west, your right rear tire ends up in a 12 to 14-inch pothole every time. And then a street that was called to my attention, which is hardly ever traveled, is Rivard Court. Get a chance, drive down Rivard Court. That concrete's really beat up.
And that is on the list, Lenny,
Yeah.
to be addressed.
Is it?
And-
Okay.
And just for everybody else's knowledge, remember when we did LaSalle Court, how bad that was? We ended up doing the whole thing. Brevard Court is about in that same
It's
state.
about in that same, yeah, we were there last week, and, yeah, it's
Well,
pretty rough.
we certainly can start.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. I'm just giving you an example of how
Absolutely.
bad it really is.
Yeah.
First 250 feet, there's nothing left but gravel. I mean, it's pretty much just been turned to gravel.
No other comments?
Ray?
No comments.
Bill?
I'm just curious, do we have any schedule as to how the asphalt work is going to be accomplished? Do we have any priority? Do we have a list? They're just
No,
gonna.
the contracts just got signed, I think, last week, and we haven't had a pre-con with them yet. But once we have that pre-con, we'll be able to figure out what that schedule is. So, and I'll let you guys know. But yeah, nothing yet.
Because I'm just seeing a lot of areas where, especially on the south end, where we've got an intersection, chip seal, then another
On grass.
section of paving, then more chip sealing. Is that going to
Crossing
get
the condos,
coordinated,
Ross.
or are they just going to?
Yeah, we'll work it all out. I mean, the problem is we've got 3 different roads of chip seal that look like they're going to happen on Monday. Then we probably have the rest of the chip seal work that's going to happen in July. We haven't got the schedule yet on the asphalt work. Then we're going to have concrete work that we have to do. And then we have these intersections we have to do. And then you got Meridian Road that's going to be done, and a bridge that's closed. So yeah, we're going to try to work it all out the best that we can.
Okay.
But there is going to be a
By
lot
June,
happening.
we'll have a schedule.
We should have a better schedule as to what's going to happen where, and we have to put that together because public safety and the schools, at least if they're not out yet, need to know that information. So
Yeah, that's my only comment. I would think, that if we could get that published, the residents, would have some idea of what.
yeah,
what's
and
gonna be
we also
happening.
have to temper that with the fact that it's construction and things can change. For example, chip seal is supposed to start Thursday, Friday. Now it's not going to happen on Monday, so we got to get that revised word out as far as that happening on Monday. We just got word today that looks like dust control is going to happen around the 22nd, but that's dependent upon weather, so that could be delayed as well. So we always have to condition it with its construction, and it's a bit dependent on conditions or situations that are out of the control. But yeah, we'll get it out to the residents as soon as we know what's going on.
Well, we did ride around. I did ride around the island last week, and I think everything is spot on. All the intersections that he pointed out, those really do need work. There is an intersection at HCL and Knutson that is kind of falling apart. I guess I have a question about Meridian, and you might have already answered it, but why aren't we going all the way through to the bridge?
Money.
Oh.
Well, actually, on Meridian, the county's gonna do it.
Oh, okay. Then I
But-
thought maybe it was gonna be after
But
the
we
bridge.
showed it on this just to show it.
Right, but you're doing this part because of the bridge going in, you're gonna be, because
The
this is all
county's
paved.
supposed to pave that.
Oh, they
Go all
are?
the way to Horse Mill.
But eventually, so the
Right.
next year, they're gonna go the next mile to Horse Mill, and then the final to
Oh,
Bridge,
okay.
if they,
All right.
if everything holds true.
And we wanted to try to, if the county was ever gonna do it, if they had money and if it was an eligible road, we wanted to try to shy away from it, even though obviously
Right.
it's necessary. Because there might be alternative sources, to do those roads versus these local, the smaller roads, the less traveled roads, the likelihood of the county ever coming to address them is
So
nil.
the county is doing this part where the bridge is? They're on Meridian?
Yes. We
Yeah, they'll
help-
be doing
help.
Parkway to Island Drive, Island Boulevard,
And
Island
they-
Boulevard.
And they're doing the bridges as well? The county is responsible for the bridges? You
Correct.
said they're
So
doing
they're-
like 5 bridges?
They're doing the one on Meridian right now. I believe next year will be Ferry. The following year will be, it looks like probably Elba. And then the one after that will probably be Swan. So that'll be like 2024, 2025. And Swan might be 2026. I don't know by the time they get it all figured out.
Park Lane.
Park Lane? No, I can't tell you what's happening with Park Lane. Yeah.
Derek, did you ever find out from the county, do they plan to go north of Bridge on Meridian?
I did not find out, no. I haven't asked that
If we,
question.
if that ever comes up, I mean, the areas south of Parkway on Meridian is getting in pretty bad shape. And if they start talking about going north of Bridge, turn their eyes back south.
Yeah, we haven't had much of a conversation with them about roads other than bridges lately, but we'll ask them about it.
Okay.
We've been trying to get the bridge information out of them, and then but we'll ask them about those roads as well. So
Because I feel that Meridian south of Parkway is going to kind of be high on our list within a couple years.
Yep, I agree.
Oh, I have one more
Nice
question.
to get the county to do it if we can.
Go
I
ahead,
just-
Lynn.
I don't know if this has been discussed in the past, because I haven't been on the committee that long, but what about the shoulders on certain roads such as Ferry and Church, there's no shoulders, and the streets are so narrow? Is there any expansion plans that ever going to happen with that, with some of the money?
no, not really. I mean, that goes way back. We dealt with that on Church. The problem is if you maintain the road the way that it is and just resurface it, you don't have to comply with new standards for road width. But as soon as you start addressing the width by adding to the road, it's got to meet, certain width standards. That puts those roads into people's front yards, and I don't know that the county
But
was.
it's so dangerous.
Yeah, and ultimately the responsibility falls with the county, but I think the liability is incurred when you do something to it, but don't do it to a standard versus just maintaining what's there. Then it's kind of like grandfathered in. So
Like on Church, not to mention the 40, 50, 60 trees that you'd have to.
Oh, I understand
Well,
that.
That's,
Well, our original plan in 2018, 2015 was to widen Church Road 2 feet, 1 foot on either side or both on one side. Derek, Sohail, John and I stood there with the county engineers 4 years ago, and you remember the discussion. He said, if you widen it, you got to have 6-foot shoulders. We said, there aren't any shoulders. He said, you got to have 6-foot shoulders, right? And we got nowhere with that.
It's really dangerous. The people, the kids on the bikes, and
Stupid, but that's what
we have
they
wonderful
said.
bike trails, but you still have to get from A to B, like from your house to, we have to go down Church on our bikes, and it is just dangerous. And when you're driving, and there's a lot of people who are just speeding, and it's just dangerous with people walking and biking. And
It's a good point, but
I know it's been talked about, because I'm sure, people have brought it up.
yeah, I mean, you had a lot of those Bellevue, Ferry,
Yeah.
Church.
then next year we're going to do Ferry. We couldn't this year because it's a
Right.
detour route. And the section of East River, John, from Ferry to Macomb is in bad shape. And that was chip sealed some years ago. I think we need to put a cap on that, an asphalt cap, when we do ferry next year. I mentioned that to Derek. So, just a thought for next year. Dave, looking for comments.
Nothing that hasn't been mentioned.
Anything else, Derek?
No.
John? Kyle? Okay, so then now we're back to the proposed
Back to our
motion,
proposal, yeah.
which is to recommend a contract for chip sealing additional work on Bridge Road between Meridian and East River, or Meridian and Park Lane, Dallas Court, and East River to the Mesa Island Bridge, or from Mesa Island Bridge to Hickory Island Bridge, at a cost of $190,028.10 for additional chip sealing. I'll make the motion to make that recommendation to the Township Board. Is there support?
I'll support.
Ray supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none, everybody indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passed. Third item is, I'm going to let this recommendation to award a contract to Grow Seal Lawn Sprinkler for the installation of a sprinkler system at the wastewater treatment plant for a total cost of $15,625. I'll make the motion to approve that. Is there support?
Support.
Derek, you want to explain that?
Yeah, the DPS Commission had asked me to bring this back to them from the meeting that we had in April, after I talked to the contractor to make sure that his prices from 2022 were still valid. His prices from 2022 were still valid. The only difference is the addition of the electrical work, which I could ask them to include in their price. The township used to have an electrician we worked with on a regular basis, but we don't necessarily have that type of arrangement any longer. So they have an electrician that they work with, and they just built that cost into their contract. So that's the difference from the proposal that was presented to you last month. If recommended by this commission, then it would go to the board in May the second meeting in May to have this approved, and then they can start doing their work over there. So that's all I have to add.
Okay. Are there any discussion, questions? We
I
talked
got a
about-
question.
Go ahead.
Is that potable water or is it effluent?
It's not effluent, it's canal water.
Canal water, okay.
It's worse.
Built-in fertilizer.
If there are no other questions, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Motion passed. All right, now we're on to water loss report, Derek.
Water loss report's included in your packet. 34% for January, 37% for February, but once again, we'll see how those average out throughout the year because we have that billing cycle issue where we're behind a lot of months. You'll see they'll start evening out as we go along. But there was one thing that was worth mentioning, especially that's going to pop up for the month of May or April. We got a phone call a couple of weeks ago from the contractor that is doing the bridge replacement on Meridian. Unfortunately, as they were running the sheet pile for the coffer dams, they struck our 16-inch water main that we put in 12 months ago. And our water usage or our water consumption went from over 1 million gallons a day at that rate up to over 6.5 million gallons. So we were dumping a lot of water into the canal. So that water main stretch is currently shut off. We don't have anybody that is currently out of water, but we do have two isolated systems now. We have a north feed and we have a south feed. So we have really two separate water systems, whereas that was the connection kind of between the two. So we've isolated by the valves where my thumbs are. So that stretch right there has been isolated from the rest of the system, so we don't have anybody that's out of water. But we're currently working with our attorney and the contractor and the county to seek resolution on that issue. So because it impacts water loss, I wanted to mention it now, but also so you're aware that we have this outstanding issue that we're dealing with currently. that we'll keep you apprised on what's going on with that as we go along. But the strike occurred in the canal, so it's not an easy repair. If it was an easy repair, it would already been done. So we've got to figure out with the engineers what options exist, if any, to repair. If we can't repair, it would be a replace. So those are all things that we're working through currently. So any questions about that?
I have one question, Derek. Who is the contractor that is on that bridge?
The contractor is Toby Construction.
Who?
Toby Construction.
Toby? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, the next
That's all I
item,
have for water loss.
the next item,
Yeah.
the next item is a DPS projects update. Everybody's had a chance to look at your report, so Hal, I don't think there's a need to go through it if we want to save some time here. I don't have any questions on it. We talked about almost all this tonight that's in your report. The only thing I'd suggest is add the water asset management plan to this report in the future. But other than that, if there's no questions, we'll just receive your report. Thank you. Thanks for being here tonight. I know you have a bit of a ride if you want to go. We appreciate you being here. Does anybody have any questions for Sahal about anything?
Good to see him again.
Thank you, Sahal.
Good night.
As far as other items, we talked about the additional road projects. Chairman's report. The only thing I can say is, for years, we've been working on this ACO at the wastewater plant and the problems at the plant and the need to upgrade it and our roads. This is an exciting time, at least for those of us that have been on the commission a while, to see these things coming to fruition. So thank you to all the staff and everybody that's helped on that. That's my report. We'll go around the table. Commissioner's report. Dave?
I have nothing. We approved one last night, and we'll get the rest of them approved in a couple of weeks.
Thank you. Linda?
Yeah, I'm good.
Bill?
Nothing further.
Great. Nothing. Lenny?
No, sir.
Les?
My lips are sealed.
Lips are sealed, and I want to thank you for, are you Les's daughter? Yes. Thank you for bringing Les tonight. It's good to see you and good to see him. John?
Well, since you skipped over me on the report, yes, sir, I do have a couple of items to report on.
I just got to you.
Oh, I'm above you, Bill, actually. If you want to go home, I can save it.
John, I missed that. I'm sorry.
That's no problem.
That's okay. I did that to your boss last night.
Thank you. Yeah, I did see that. So our spring fire hydrant flushing program continues. And Bill had mentioned earlier about looping the island. With that loop in place, our flushing times have been a lot less. Our chlorine residuals come up a lot sooner, so that's been a great asset to the program. Beginning in June, our lead and copper sampling pool for residents will begin. When we're doing that sampling pool, it's mandated by Eagle that we update our plan. So we have to identify all the lead service lines prior to 2025. So we're going to start going out and identifying those, and if a customer feels that they have a lead service line, by all means call the office and we'll come out and we'll verify that and get that resolved. Also today there was a water main break on the corner of West River Road and Ruthmere. So we had to isolate that area and put some customers out of water for a little bit. That's a temporary repair. We're going to have to remove the pavement on West River Road and make a final repair. Probably next week we'll get to that. So there was a push notification put out this morning. We'll put out another push notification when we have to shut it off again. Probably next week we'll do that.
What broke? Ruthmere?
Yes. So they're pulling that electrical conduit under the river. And
They've been screwing around with that long enough.
as of when we left there today, they said it'll be 3 a.m. tonight, and that'll be under the river and done. So let's hope for the best on that one. Let's hope it holds on until we get there to do the real repair.
Yeah.
Okay, and then also Derek had mentioned earlier, we're gonna start our dust control. So the plan is to have Wayne County grade the gravel roads on the 17th. So please don't park on the roads on the 17th. And then also the dust control application will happen on 5/22, which is a Monday. Please don't park on the roads during those times as well. And if you see them out there spraying, do yourself a favor and don't drive down the road at the time, so you don't get that product on your vehicles. And,
Let it soak in.
thank you. And then that's all I have for today, Bill.
John, well, thank you very much for your report.
Thank you.
With that, Derek, anything else? Entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn. At
Been
9.
moved, supported, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting's adjourned, thank you. Next.